In a boardroom full of powerful white faces, a black man in a wrinkled shirt stood holding a cable box. His eyes carried the weight of sleepless nights. The CEO's voice cut through the air like ice. "Peek again and you're fired." No one defended him. No one even flinched. To them, he was just a black single father working IT, someone who shouldn't have seen what flashed on that screen. But then he responded with a sentence so calm it made the room hold its breath. Why did that single reply change everything? Before we dive into this story, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you're new here, consider subscribing so you don't miss stories like this one. Now, let's get back to Henry. Henry Frank woke at 5:30 in the morning, the same way he had every day for the past 3 years. The alarm didn't wake him. His body simply knew. He lay still for a moment, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that had been there since they moved in. The landlord kept promising to fix it. The landlord kept lying. Henry pushed himself out of bed and walked down the narrow hallway to his daughter's room. Maya was 7 years old, curled up under her blanket with her arms wrapped around a stuffed bear. Her mother had given her that bear 2 weeks before she died. Maya hadn't slept without it since. He pulled the blanket up over her shoulder, careful not to wake her. On the nightstand sat a framed photograph of his wife, Angela. She was laughing in the picture, her head thrown back, caught in a moment of pure joy. Henry couldn't remember the last time he had laughed like that. He leaned down and whispered to his sleeping daughter, "I won't let you down, baby girl. I promise." In the kitchen, he made Maya's lunch. Peanut butter and jelly, an apple, a juice box. He wrote a note and left it on the counter for his mother-in-law, who would arrive at 7 to watch Maya before school. The note said, "Dinner in the fridge. I might be late. Tell her I love her." Henry caught his reflection in the microwave door. His shirt was wrinkled. He had meant to iron it last night, but fell asleep on the couch while reviewing server logs. The dark circles under his eyes had become permanent residents on his face. He grabbed his bag and headed out. On the bus, Henry looked down at his shoes. The leather was cracked and faded, the soles worn thin. These were the only dress shoes he owned. 5 years ago, he had owned 12 pairs. 5 years ago, he had been someone else entirely. Back then, Henry Frank had been a senior cybersecurity engineer at one of the largest financial institutions in the country. He had a corner office, a 6-figure salary, and the respect of everyone in his department. He was the one they called when systems failed. He was the one who found the vulnerabilities before hackers could exploit them. Then he found the wrong vulnerability. A backdoor in the company's main server. Someone inside was siphoning client data. Henry documented everything, built an airtight case, and presented it to his superiors. Within a week, he was fired. They claimed he had created the back door himself. They said he was the threat. Security escorted him out of the building while his colleagues watched. No one spoke up for him. No one asked questions. A black man pointing fingers at the system? In their eyes, he wasn't a whistleblower. He was a problem that needed to disappear. The industry blacklisted him. No firm would touch him. His wife, Angela, took on extra shifts at the hospital to keep them afloat. She worked doubles, then triples. She stopped sleeping. She stopped eating properly. When the doctors found the cancer, it was already stage 4. The stress hadn't caused it, but it hadn't helped either. She was gone within 8 months. Henry sold everything they owned to pay the medical bills, the house, the cars, her jewelry, everything except that stuffed bear. Now he rode the bus to work. Now he fixed printers and reset passwords. Now he was invisible. The bus stopped 2 blocks from Frost Industries, and Henry stepped off into the gray morning light. Frost Industries occupied a 40-story glass tower in the heart of the financial district. The company was worth billions, built from nothing by a woman who had turned her rage into an empire. Henry entered through the service entrance as required for contract workers. He made his way down to the basement, where the IT support team occupied a windowless room filled with humming servers and tangled cables. His only co-worker was already there. Derek was 28, white, and had been with the company for 6 months longer than Henry. That seniority, however small, meant Derek got to choose which tickets to take. He always chose the easy ones. Derek didn't look up when Henry walked in. He never did. "Server room on 40 needs attention," Derek said, eyes fixed on his phone. "Tickets in the queue." Henry checked the ticket. A projector malfunction in the executive boardroom, the same boardroom where the company's leadership was meeting to finalize a $2.3 billion merger. "This says it's urgent," Henry said. Derek shrugged. "Then you better hurry." Henry grabbed his toolkit and headed for the elevator. On his way through the main lobby, he passed the glass-walled elevator bank. Inside one of the elevators, he saw them. Alexandra Frost stood with perfect posture, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. She was the founder and CEO of Frost Industries. Everything about her radiated control, the set of her jaw, the steel in her eyes, the way she held space like she owned not just the building, but the air inside it. Beside her stood Peter Webb. He was the company's chief financial officer, a man in his early 50s with graying temples and the easy confidence of someone who had never been told no. He wore a suit that cost more than Henry's monthly rent. His hand rested briefly on Alexandra's shoulder as he said something that made her smile. 12 years, Henry had heard. Peter had been by Alexandra's side for 12 years. He was her most trusted advisor, her right hand, the man she planned to hand the company to when she retired. As the elevator rose, Peter glanced through the glass and noticed Henry standing below. He gave a small nod. It was the kind of nod powerful people give to service workers. Polite, dismissive, forgettable. Henry nodded back and kept walking. The executive boardroom on the 40th floor had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The table was polished mahogany. The chairs were leather. Everything in the room cost more than Henry would earn in a year. Around the table sat 8 people, 4 members of Frost Industries' board of directors, 3 representatives from the partner company involved in the merger, and at the head of the table, Alexandra Frost. Peter Webb sat at her right hand, reviewing documents on a tablet. They all looked up when Henry entered, or rather, they looked through him. Henry had learned to recognize that look. It wasn't hostility. It was absence. To them, he simply didn't register as a person worth noticing. He was furniture. He was background noise. "The projector," Alexandra said without greeting. "Fix it." Henry set down his toolkit and knelt beside the projector stand. The cable connection had come loose. A simple fix. He'd be done in 30 seconds. He was reaching for the cable when the projector flickered to life on its own. The screen blazed with light. A document appeared. Confidential merger details, acquisition prices, asset valuations, secret negotiation terms. Everything that was supposed to stay behind closed doors was suddenly displayed for everyone to see. 4 seconds. The document was visible for 4 seconds before Henry reached up and disconnected the cable. The screen went dark. Henry kept his eyes on the cable in his hands. He hadn't looked at the document. He hadn't needed to. But it didn't matter what he had or hadn't seen. What mattered was that he had been there. Alexandra Frost rose from her seat. The room fell silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. She walked toward Henry with measured steps, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She stopped 3 feet away from him, close enough that he could see the ice in her pale blue eyes. "Stand up," she said. Henry stood. He kept the cable in his hands because he didn't know what else to do with them. Alexandra's voice carried across the room, loud enough for everyone to hear. This wasn't a private reprimand. This was a public execution. "Peek again and you're fired. Do you understand?" The words hung in the air. Henry felt the weight of every gaze in the room pressing down on him. He saw the board members exchanging glances. He saw the partner representatives shifting uncomfortably. He saw Peter Webb watching with an expression that might have been sympathy, but was probably just curiosity. No one spoke up for him. No one questioned whether the accusation was fair. No one wondered if perhaps a loose cable wasn't the same thing as corporate espionage. They simply accepted it. A black man in a wrinkled shirt had been in the room when sensitive information appeared on screen. Of course, he was the problem. Of course, he needed to be put in his place. Henry had been here before. Different room, different company, same story. He knew what was expected of him. He was supposed to apologize, lower his eyes, shrink. But he had spent 3 years shrinking, 3 years swallowing his pride, 3 years being invisible. He looked directly at Alexandra Frost. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't clench his fists. He simply spoke, and the calm in his voice made everyone listen. "I didn't look at your documents, Ms. Frost, but if you're genuinely concerned about security, you might want to ask why someone has accessed the server containing those exact files 14 times in the past 3 weeks, from outside the system, unauthorized, and it wasn't me." The room went still. Alexandra's expression flickered, just for a moment, just enough. "What did you say?" she asked. Henry set the cable down on the table, neat and precise. "I'm an IT technician, ma'am. My job is to look at systems, and your system has been showing me some very interesting things." He picked up his toolkit. "The projector is fixed. If you need to fire someone, I suggest you find the right person." He walked out of the room without looking back. Behind him, the silence stretched. Then Peter Webb's voice broke through, smooth and reassuring. "Alex, I'm sure he's just trying to protect himself. You know how these situations can be. Let's not let it derail the meeting." But Alexandra Frost wasn't looking at Peter. She was staring at the door Henry had just walked through, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she wasn't certain she had all the answers. 2 hours after Henry walked out of the boardroom, Alexandra Frost sat alone in her office on the 42nd floor. The city sprawled beneath her windows, but she wasn't looking at the view. She was looking at the system logs on her screen. 14 unauthorized access attempts. Just as Henry had said. Someone had been entering the server that contained the merger documents, and they had done it repeatedly over the past 3 weeks. The access points were masked, routed through multiple proxies, but the pattern was undeniable. Alexandra picked up her phone and called the head of IT. "I want everything you have on Henry Frank," she said. "Employment history, background check, the full file, and I want it in 30 minutes. The file arrived in 20. Henry Frank, 35 years old, contract IT support technician, 8 months with the company, no disciplinary issues, no complaints, nothing remarkable at all. But Alexandra had learned long ago that the surface never told the whole story. She dug deeper, and there it was. 5 years ago, Henry Frank had been a senior cybersecurity engineer at Morrison Financial, one of the best in the industry, according to his performance reviews. Then, suddenly, he was terminated. The official reason listed was security violation. The unofficial blacklist that followed had erased him from the industry entirely. Alexandra leaned back in her chair. A man with that kind of background working in her basement fixing projectors. Either he was the threat she needed to eliminate, or he was something else entirely. She needed to know which. That evening, Henry sat alone in the basement IT office. Derek had left hours ago. The servers hummed their endless song around him, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. His phone lit up with an incoming video call. Maya's face appeared on the screen, bright and eager. "Daddy, guess what?" Henry felt the tension in his shoulders ease at the sound of her voice. "What is it, baby girl?" "I got an A on my math test. Miss Patterson said I did the best in the whole class." A smile broke across Henry's face, the first genuine smile he'd had all day. "That's my girl. I'm so proud of you." Maya's expression shifted slightly. her 7-year-old eyes studying him through the screen. "Daddy, you look tired. Are you okay?" Henry rubbed his face with his free hand. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just dealing with some problems at work." "What kind of problems?" He considered how to answer. "How do you explain workplace politics and racial bias to a child who still believed the world was fair?" "There's a situation I need to figure out," he said finally. "Some people think I did something wrong, but I didn't." Maya nodded seriously. "Then you have to show them the truth. That's what Mommy always said. Remember? She said you're the best problem solver she ever knew." Henry's throat tightened. "Yeah, she used to say that. So just do what you always do, Daddy. Be calm and be smart, right?" He looked at his daughter's face on the screen. So much like Angela's that it sometimes hurt to look at her. But right now, it didn't hurt. Right now, it gave him strength. "Right," he said. "Calm and smart." After the call ended, Henry sat in the silence of the server room. He thought about the choice in front of him. He could stay quiet, keep his head down, finish his contract and move on. That was the safe path, the invisible path. Or he could do what he had done 5 years ago. Speak up, tell the truth, and risk losing everything again. But this time was different. This time, he had nothing left to lose. The phone on his desk rang. An internal line. "Mr. Frank." The voice on the other end was cool and professional. "Ms. Frost would like to see you in her office, immediately." Alexandra's office was everything the basement was not. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art on the walls. A desk made of glass and steel. Everything designed to project power and control. She stood by the window when Henry entered, her back to him. "Close the door," she said without turning around. Henry closed it and waited. Alexandra finally turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes were sharp, assessing. "Why didn't you report the unauthorized access?" she asked. "Would you like the honest answer or the professional one?" "I don't have time for games, Mr. Frank." Henry met her gaze. 5 years ago, I was a senior cybersecurity engineer at Morrison Financial. I found a back door in their system. Someone inside was selling client data. I did everything right. I documented the breach, built a case, and reported it to my superiors. Alexandra's expression didn't change, but he could see she was listening. "Within a week, I was fired," Henry continued. "They said I created the back door. They said I was the threat. Security walked me out in front of everyone. No one spoke up for me. No one asked questions." He took a breath before continuing. "A black man pointing out problems in the system? They didn't see a whistleblower. They saw a target. It was easier to blame me than to investigate the people who actually belonged there." Alexandra said nothing. "So to answer your question," Henry said, "I didn't report the unauthorized access because I know what happens when someone like me raises alarms about security breaches. They don't look for the real threat. They look for a reason to get rid of me." The silence between them stretched. Alexandra walked to her desk and sat down, her fingers steepled in front of her. "Then why did you say anything in the boardroom today?" Henry's jaw tightened. "Because you forced my hand. You accused me in front of everyone. You made me choose between staying silent and being blamed for something I didn't do, or speaking up and probably being blamed anyway." He shook his head slowly. "I'm tired of being silent, Ms. Frost. Whatever happens next, at least I said the truth." Alexandra studied him for a long moment. She had built her company by trusting her instincts, by reading people and situations faster than anyone else in the room. Her instincts had made her a billionaire. Right now, her instincts were telling her something unexpected. "Show me," she said. "Show me what you found." They sat together at her computer, Henry walking her through the data, the 14 access attempts, the masked IP addresses, the specific files that had been targeted. "The pattern is consistent," Henry explained. Whoever is doing this accesses the system after hours, usually between 7 and 10 in the evening. They know exactly where to look, which means they know the file structure intimately. This isn't an outside hack. This is someone inside the company. Alexandra's face had grown pale. Someone with high-level access. Very high, Henry agreed. The files they're targeting require executive clearance. Alexandra pulled up the company calendar on her screen. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, cross-referencing the access dates with internal schedules. The color drained from her face. Every single unauthorized access had occurred on a night when Peter Webb had logged late hours at the office. "No," she said, more to herself than to Henry. "That's not possible." "I'm not making accusations," Henry said carefully. "I'm showing you what the data shows." Alexandra stared at the screen. Peter Webb, her CFO, her most trusted advisor. The man who had stood beside her for 12 years, who knew her secrets, who she had planned to hand her company to when she retired. The man who had been in the boardroom this morning, watching Henry get humiliated, and had said nothing to defend him. "There has to be another explanation," Alexandra said. "Maybe there is," Henry replied, "but there's only one way to find out." He outlined his plan. They would create a false document, a decoy containing fabricated merger details. They would place it on the server in the same location as the real files, and they would embed a digital trap that would record exactly who accessed it and when. "If Peter is innocent, he'll never touch the file," Henry said. "If he's not—" Alexandra closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something had shifted in her expression. "You're asking me to give you full access to my company's systems," she said. "You, the man I nearly fired this morning, the man with a history of security violations on his record. I know what I'm asking. If you're the one behind this, I would be handing you the keys to destroy everything I've built." Henry nodded. "Yes, you would." Alexandra stood and walked to the window. The city lights glittered below, millions of lives going about their business, unaware of the drama unfolding 42 floors above. "Why should I trust you?" she asked. Henry stood as well. "You shouldn't. You have no reason to. I'm a black man with a ruined reputation working a job that pays less than what you spend on coffee in a month. Every instinct you have is probably telling you I'm the threat." He met her eyes in the window's reflection. "But I've had 8 months to sabotage your company if I wanted to. I know your systems better than your IT director. I could have sold your data, crashed your servers, done anything. And I didn't. I fixed projectors and reset passwords and stayed invisible because I needed this job to feed my daughter." Alexandra turned to face him. "The question isn't whether you should trust me," Henry said. "The question is whether you're willing to find out the truth, even if it destroys everything you thought you knew." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Alexandra walked to her desk, typed in a series of commands, and turned the screen toward Henry. "Full access," she said. "Don't make me regret this." The next 48 hours were the longest of Henry's life. He worked through the night setting up the trap, creating the false document, embedding the trackers that would capture any unauthorized access. Every line of code had to be perfect. One mistake would tip off whoever was watching. During the day, Alexandra had to maintain appearances. She attended meetings with Peter, reviewed documents with him, smiled and nodded while wondering if the man beside her had been betraying her all along. Henry watched her through the security feeds when he needed a break. He saw the way her smile never quite reached her eyes. He saw the way her hand trembled slightly when Peter touched her shoulder. He saw the cost of suspicion, the weight of doubt. He knew that weight. He had carried it for 5 years. Late on the second night, Henry finally went home. Maya was already asleep, her arms wrapped around the stuffed bear that had once belonged to her mother. The bear's fur was worn thin now, soft from years of being held through nightmares and lonely nights. Henry sat beside her bed, watching her breathe, remembering all the times Angela had sat in this exact spot. "I'm doing the right thing, baby girl," he whispered. "I have to believe that." He thought about Angela, about what she would say if she could see him now. She had always believed in him, even when he stopped believing in himself. She had told him, in those final weeks in the hospital, that his integrity was the most valuable thing he possessed. "Don't let them take that from you," she had said. "Promise me." He had promised. And now, sitting in his daughter's room, he renewed that promise in his heart. The next morning, Henry's computer chimed with an alert. Someone had accessed the decoy file. His hands were steady as he pulled up the log data. The timestamp, the access point, the device ID. The device belonged to Peter Webb. Henry stared at the screen. Part of him had hoped he was wrong. Part of him had wanted there to be another explanation, some mistake in the data, some reasonable justification. But the evidence was undeniable. Peter Webb, CFO of Frost Industries, trusted advisor and friend to Alexandra Frost, had accessed confidential merger documents from his personal device at 9:47 the previous evening. Henry picked up the phone and dialed Alexandra's private line. "It's done," he said. "You need to see this." 20 minutes later, Alexandra sat in her office staring at the same screen Henry had been looking at. The same timestamp, the same device ID, the same undeniable truth. She didn't speak for a long time. When she finally looked up, her face was different. The ice was gone. The control was cracked. What Henry saw beneath was something he recognized. It was the face of someone whose world had just collapsed. 12 years, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I trusted him for 12 years. She looked at Henry then, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time. "And you. I accused you in front of everyone. I was ready to destroy your career over a glance at a projector screen, because you were—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Because I was the easy target," Henry said quietly. "I know." Alexandra's composure finally broke. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply sat there, staring at the evidence of betrayal, and let the weight of it settle onto her shoulders. "If you hadn't spoken up," she said, "if you had just stayed silent like I expected you to, we would have closed the merger. Peter would have sold our strategy to our competitors, and I would have blamed the leak on the black IT technician who was in the room when the documents appeared on screen." The truth of it hung between them, ugly and undeniable. "Yes," Henry said, "you would have." Alexandra looked at the photograph on her desk. It was from the company's 10th anniversary, her standing with Peter and the rest of the leadership team, all of them smiling, all of them celebrating what they had built together. All of it was built on a lie. "What happens now?" she asked. Henry stood. "That's your decision, Ms. Frost. I've done what I can. The rest is up to you." He walked toward the door, then stopped. "But if I can offer one piece of advice, don't make the same mistake twice. Don't look for the easy answer. Look for the right one." He left her sitting alone with the ruins of her trust scattered around her. And for the first time since Angela died, Henry Frank felt like himself again. The emergency board meeting was called for 9 o'clock the following morning. The same boardroom, the same mahogany table, the same floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. But everything else had changed. Henry stood in the corner of the room near the door. He wasn't seated at the table. He hadn't been invited to participate, but Alexandra had asked him to be present, and so he was there, watching. The board members filed in one by one, their faces showing various degrees of confusion and concern. An emergency meeting with no agenda was unprecedented. Something significant was happening. Peter Webb arrived last, his suit impeccable, his expression calm and confident. He took his usual seat at Alexandra's right hand and leaned toward her. "Alex, what's going on?" "The board is nervous." Alexandra didn't look at him. She was reviewing something on her tablet, her face a mask of composure. "You'll find out with everyone else," she said. The doors closed. Alexandra stood. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," she began. "I've called this meeting because I have evidence of a serious security breach within our company. Someone at the executive level has been accessing confidential merger documents and sharing them with outside parties." The room erupted in murmurs. Board members exchanged alarmed glances. Peter leaned forward, his brow furrowed with what appeared to be genuine concern. "Alex, that's a serious accusation," he said. "Do we know who's responsible?" Alexandra turned to face him directly. "Yes, Peter, we do." She pressed a button on her tablet, and the screen at the front of the room came to life. Timestamps, access logs, device identifications, a trail of evidence that led directly to Peter Webb's personal computer. The room fell silent. Peter stared at the screen, his confident expression slowly dissolving. Then he laughed, a short, incredulous sound. "This is absurd. Someone is clearly trying to frame me." His eyes swept the room and landed on Henry, still standing by the door. "Perhaps we should be asking questions about the person who had access to our systems and a convenient history of security violations." Every head in the room turned toward Henry. Henry stepped forward, his voice steady. "Mr. Webb, if I had fabricated this evidence, why would I create a trail that leads to your personal device? A device I have never had access to. Why would I manufacture a pattern that perfectly matches your own calendar, your own late nights at the office, dates that I couldn't possibly have known in advance?" Peter's jaw tightened. "You're an IT technician. You could have found that information anywhere." "I'm a contract IT technician who works in the basement," Henry replied. "I don't have access to executive calendars. I don't have access to personal devices. But you know who does have access to confidential servers, executive systems, and the knowledge to hide their tracks? Someone who has been here for 12 years? Someone who knows exactly how this company operates?" The board members were looking at Peter now, their expressions shifting from suspicion to something harder. Peter turned to Alexandra, his voice dropping to something more intimate, more pleading. "Alex, come on. It's me. We've been through everything together. You can't seriously believe this over the word of some maintenance worker." Alexandra's expression didn't waver. "The system doesn't lie, Peter. The timestamps don't lie. And unlike some people in this room, Mr. Frank had nothing to gain by coming forward. In fact, he had everything to lose." She looked at the evidence on the screen, then back at the man she had trusted for over a decade. Why, Peter? Was it money? "Were you in trouble?" For a long moment, Peter said nothing. The mask of confidence had crumbled completely now, revealing something desperate and cornered underneath. "You have no idea what it's like," he finally said, his voice bitter. "Standing in your shadow for 12 years, watching you get all the credit while I did half the work. And for what? A salary? A title? I deserved more." Alexandra's composure cracked, just slightly. "I was going to give you the company, Peter, when I retired. It was all going to be yours." Peter laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "And when would that have been, Alex? Another 10 years? 20? I couldn't wait that long. I had debts, obligations. People are breathing down my neck. The offer from Harrington Industries was too good to pass up." The admission hung in the air, stark and undeniable. Several board members were already on their phones, likely calling legal counsel. Alexandra nodded slowly as if confirming something she had already known. "Security will escort you out," she said. "Our lawyers and the authorities will handle the rest." 2 security guards entered the room. Peter stood, straightening his tie with trembling hands. As he walked toward the door, he passed Henry and stopped. "You think you've won something?" Peter said quietly. so only Henry could hear. But people like you don't win, not in the long run. Henry met his gaze without flinching. I'm not trying to win, Mr. Webb. I'm just trying to do what's right. That's something you clearly never understood. Peter was escorted out. The door closed behind him, and the room let out a collective breath. That afternoon, Alexandra called Henry to her office. The same office where she had first interrogated him. The same windows, the same view. But the woman sitting behind the desk seemed different somehow. Smaller, more human. I owe you an apology, she said. Not just for what happened in the boardroom that first day, for all of it, for the assumptions I made, for the things I was willing to believe about you without evidence. Henry stood across from her, his hands at his sides. You weren't wrong to be suspicious. You just suspected the wrong person. Alexandra shook her head. No, I suspected the easy person, the one who looked like a threat because of his circumstances, his background, his skin. I saw what I expected to see, and I almost destroyed an innocent man because of it. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. 10 years ago, I nearly lost this company to a cyber attack. It almost broke me. Since then, I've been so focused on protecting what I built that I stopped seeing people clearly. I saw threats everywhere, and I trusted the people who looked like me, who talked like me, who came from the same world as me. I never questioned whether that trust was earned. She turned back to face him. You earned it, Mr. Frank. In 3 days, you earned more trust than Peter did in 12 years. And I almost fired you for fixing a projector. Henry considered her words. The anger he might have felt was absent. He had carried enough anger over the past 5 years. What he felt instead was something closer to exhaustion, and beneath that, something like peace. What happens now? He asked. That depends on you, Alexandra said. I want to offer you the position of Chief Security Officer, full authority over all cybersecurity operations, a team of your own, compensation that reflects your actual value to this company. Henry didn't respond immediately. I need to think about it, he said. I need to talk to someone first. That evening, Henry sat on Maya's bed while she finished her homework. The apartment was quiet, the city sounds muffled through the thin walls. The stuffed bear sat propped against her pillow, watching over them both the way it always had. Daddy, can I ask you something? Maya said, looking up from her math worksheet. Always, baby girl. Did you catch the bad guy at work? Henry smiled. Something like that. Some people are going to make sure he can't do bad things anymore. Maya nodded seriously, her 7-year-old mind processing this information. And are the people who were mean to you sorry now? One of them is. She apologized today. That's good. Mommy always said sorry is important. Henry reached out and smoothed her hair. She did say that. She also said something else. Do you remember? Maya thought for a moment. She said you're a good person. The best person she ever knew. The words hit Henry somewhere deep, in a place he had tried to protect for 3 years. His eyes stung, but he didn't look away from his daughter. And what do good people deserve? He asked. Maya grinned. Good things. Mommy said good people deserve good things. Henry pulled her into a hug, feeling the worn fur of the stuffed bear press against his arm. Angela's bear. Angela's words. Angela's daughter, carrying her mother's wisdom into the world. Then I guess I better start believing that, huh? 1 month later, Henry walked into Frost Industries through the main entrance. No more service door, no more basement. He wore a new suit, new shoes, and carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had finally found his footing. In the elevator, he encountered Alexandra. She smiled when she saw him, a real smile that reached her eyes. Ready for the board presentation? She asked. Ready, Henry replied. They're going to listen to every word you say. After what happened, your credibility in this company is untouchable. The elevator rose, carrying them toward the 40th floor. Through the glass walls, Henry could see the city spreading out below them, full of people going about their lives, fighting their own battles, carrying their own burdens. "Thank you," Alexandra said quietly, "not just for saving the company, for giving me a chance to be better." Henry nodded. "We all deserve that chance. The question is what we do with it." The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. Henry stepped out into the sunlight streaming through the windows, heading toward the boardroom where, just 1 month ago, he had been publicly humiliated. Today, he would walk in as a leader. That night, when he tucked Maya into bed, she looked up at him with her mother's eyes. The stuffed bear was tucked under her arm, its fur soft and familiar. "Daddy, are you happy now?" Henry thought about the question, about everything that had brought him to this moment, the loss and the pain and the years of being invisible, and then the choice he had made, to speak up, to stand firm, to refuse to disappear. "Yeah, baby girl," he said, "I think I finally am." He kissed her forehead and turned off the light, leaving the door open just a crack, the way she liked it. Sometimes the most powerful answer isn't a shout. It's the quiet voice that refuses to break, even when the whole world expects you to fall apart. Henry Frank had learned that lesson the hard way, and he would never forget it. If this story moved you, or if you saw something of yourself in Henry's journey, let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. There are more stories like this coming, stories about ordinary people who refuse to stay invisible. Until next time, remember, your voice matters, even when nobody's listening, especially when nobody's listening.